everybody. Welcome to the White House. Thank you all for being here today. And welcome to Washington, D.C. We are so excited to have you here at the White House. I'm Catherine Galogli. I run the White House Community Leaders Briefing Program and am just thrilled that after weeks and months of planning, we have got you all to Washington, and I'm just thrilled that you're all here today. A couple of quick logistical notes. I already mentioned this, but this is the most often asked question, so the bathrooms are just right down the hall, the men's room to the right, women's room to the left. And more importantly, perhaps, or as importantly, we would love you guys to tweet throughout this event using the hashtag White House Community Leaders. You'll hear from a fantastic set of panelists and White House officials today about their experience, and we are very, very honored to have you all here and to have them as well. To start us off, we're joined by Roy Austin, one of my favorite members of the Obama administration. Roy is Deputy Assistant to the President for Urban Affairs, Justice, and Opportunity, and previously served in the Department of Justice, and he can speak extraordinarily well to the broad range of the President's domestic agenda, and that's why we are excited to have him here to open things up today. Thank you all again.
So thank you very much, Catherine. Right now, I think our thoughts and our prayers in this administration, I'm sure out there, are with the people of Charleston, South Carolina. The horrific act that happened last night is something that we have to do everything we can in our power to prevent from ever happening again. The President spoke about this earlier today, and he's noted that hatred across races poses a particular threat to our democracy and our ideas. And that's absolutely true. I spent the bulk of my career as a civil rights prosecutor traveling the nation, prosecuting hate crimes and police misconduct cases. And this incident is a reminder that we all have an incredible amount of work to continue to do on these and so many other issues for those who are struggling in our communities. I have the honor of being here at the White House working on issues that I feel passionately about. And as I looked at the work that the Corps does, and I looked at the work that we do here at the White House in the Office of Urban Affairs, Justice, and Opportunity, we're doing the same things. You're doing it out there in the field, directly with the people, and we're doing it here through changing policies to make it easier for you to continue to do your work. So we work on everything here from criminal justice reform to civil rights, to human services, to labor, to housing, to our place-based initiatives like Promise Zones and the My Brother's Keeper initiative. That's the work that we are doing here on policy. And everything I just listed is the work that you're doing out there. We work with disconnected kids, from foster youth to those who are just having trouble finding a job. And we're trying to do everything we can to lift them up so that they can be that hand that pulls down and lifts up the next person, and to give them the power and the ability to do so, and that's what you're doing. And we do, and the work we're doing on things like making sure that kids have a chance to get into the workforce, get the skills they need to succeed in the workplace, from STEM to just basic skills that they need. We're doing everything we can on the education front, and my team and the team that I get a chance to work with on education is working on things like free community colleges and making sure that we have preschool for all. And these are things that everyone should believe in. And you're going to be out there on the streets and in the communities helping people to fight for the things that they need most. We do a lot of stuff on juvenile justice. How do we continue the trend that we're seeing, which is a good trend, of fewer and fewer young people being held in secure facilities? How do we make sure that there are alternatives to incarceration and being locked up? How do we make sure that in certain states, 16 and 17-year-olds are not being locked up as adults? Look, we know this. We know that a 16 and a 17-year-old deserves a second chance, deserves a chance to be treated like a child. Too many of these young people never had that opportunity. So we as a community, we as an administration, you as Corps members, have to find ways to work with these kids to make sure that when they see you They see opportunity. They see hope. They see a chance not only for themselves, but also a chance to lift up their families, a chance to lift up their communities, a chance to believe in something and to fight for something. These kids want this. We know that. We know it because we've seen this in Ferguson, and we've seen it in Baltimore, and we've seen it in Staten Island, and we've seen it in communities around this country. These kids know what they want. They want people to help them to get there, and they're going to do everything they can, but they need a boost. They need someone to help to lead that way. They need someone to make what is sometimes anger constructive. That's something that you can do. That's something that you have an opportunity to do out there on the streets and in the communities of this great nation that we live in. We also have things that we're working on criminal justice reform. I mean, there's a recognition that we are locking up too many people for too long for the wrong reasons. And the president, very early in this presidency, signed the Fair Sentencing Act, which tried to even out the disparate impact of our sentencing laws on those who were using crack and those who were using cocaine. Well, first of all, we have to give people a reason not to use anything at all. But we also can't treat people differently when those differences really don't matter. And that's something that this administration is constantly working toward and constantly making sure that we get right. And how do we make sure that those who do get involved get the educational programming, get the skills programming, get the mental health programming that they need to succeed? How do we direct them in the right way? That's the question for you. And that's the question that you, as you're out there working with these people, are going to have a chance to answer and direct them in a constructive place. And look, 70 million people right now have an arrest or criminal record. 70 million Americans have an arrest or criminal record. After they've done their time, they need an opportunity to succeed. We need to stop closing the door to them with needless collateral consequences. I think the ABA counted 40,000 collateral consequences. That's things that say you cannot apply for this job or you cannot have this job because you have a record. Well, you've done your time. And now it's time for us to help you to succeed. And these are young people. We know that about 50% of African American boys are going to have an arrest before they are 23 years old. That number's insane. So we have to do everything we can to prevent them from having that arrest or that criminal conviction in the first place. But when they do get in trouble, we have to give them a real second chance. We have to find a way to lift them up and encourage them to do better and make them see success in themselves so that they're not hopeless. Again, I'm just talking about the policy stuff, which is work that you have been doing for years, and many of you are going to go out there and do very soon again. You're the ones on the street doing this day in and day out, meeting the real people behind the policies that I'm talking about. And I want to encourage you to keep fighting for those things. We do a ton of stuff with disabled youth and disabled adults who want nothing but a real job that pays them a real wage so that they can prove that they belong in this country just like everybody else. And we have to remove the barriers to that. We work with our LGBT youth, and I believe you're going to hear more about that today. But the idea that someone, because of who they love, is different from someone else because of who they love, well, that's a silly notion, and one that this administration is not going to stand for, and one that you, when you're out there working with these individuals, have a place to be an advocate for and make it clear that this is a fellow human being, a fellow American who deserves the same rights and privileges and opportunities that everyone else has. So I come to you to encourage you, to say welcome to the White House, to say that we are behind your efforts, that we want to see you succeed, that we want to make sure that you continue the amazing work that the Corps member stands for. You have a responsibility on your shoulders. You're young leaders. And old folks like myself need you to do better than we did. And so with that, I thank you for your service to this country, to the Corps, And please, don't hesitate to reach out if you think there's something that I've missed when I was describing the work we're doing. If you think there's a policy that we need to do, write us, tell us, be active, and we'll see what we can do. We only have about, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 580 days till the weekend. That's the amount of time left in this administration. And we're going to work every single day to make life better for everybody. So thank you so much.
I hope you all are inspired. I know I am. Thank you to Roy, and again to you all for being here. We're now going to hear directly from some of your own Core Network members, and so I will let them do most of the talking. I'll welcome them up on stage if you all want to take a seat. Let's give them a round of applause, first of all. And I'd also like to welcome Mary Ellen Spreckle, the CEO of the Core Network, who's going to introduce the panel and serve as our moderator. Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I know Ray has already left, but please thank him for those powerful remarks. It's good to know that we have advocates here in the White House championing the causes that we care so deeply about and work on the ground. The Obama administration has been a good friend to the Core Network and to CORES, and we look forward to building on that strong relationship over the next 18 months. We are particularly excited about the possibility of participating in a number of the new initiatives that the administration is currently rolling out. I'd also like to thank Catherine, who has worked with the Core Network over the past several months to make this opportunity possible. And it's not everyone who, all groups that get invited to the White House to sort of have a dialogue about what's important. So this is a really great opportunity. Thank you. I'm Mary Ellen Spreckle. I am the president of the Core Network, and it is my great honor and privilege to be here with you today. CORES are the direct descendants of the Civilian Conservation Corps of the 1930s. Today's Service and Conservation Corps engage 25,000 young adults and veterans in conservation-related service projects in urban areas and on public lands each year. These projects are designed to tackle some of America's greatest challenges, like deteriorating natural spaces and infrastructure, climate change and natural disaster, youth unemployment, and the growing opportunity gap. Tied to these projects, Core members receive education, workforce development, and supportive services, which often include an AmeriCorps stipend and education award. Unfortunately, right now, the House and Senate Appropriations Committees are moving legislation that include drastic cuts to AmeriCorps International Service. Bill Basil, who is the director of AmeriCorps and will be moderating our second panel this afternoon, will tell you more about these possible cuts and what they could mean for programs like CORES. Fortunately, we have a strong advocate in President Obama, and we have hundreds of success stories like the ones that you're going to hear about how national service, and CORES in particular, are helping young people re-engage in society, advance their education, gain workforce skills, and explore career pathways, and develop into the next generation of community leaders and environmental stewards. First, we'll hear from Ray Santos from American Youthworks in Austin, Texas. Ray is currently a crew leader for their Opportunity Youth Initiative, which is designed to specifically serve formerly incarcerated and court-involved young people. Next, we'll hear from Kenesha Jackson, an alumni of Greater Miami Service Corps. Kenesha is currently using her AmeriCorps Ed Award to go to college at Southern New Hampshire University. Next, we'll hear from Aisha Dorn, an alumni of Civic Works in Baltimore. She will share how her Corps experience prepared her to open her own business, Lifeline Environmental. Finally, we'll hear from Catherine Martinez. Catherine is a current Corps member at the Curlew Job Corps Center in Washington State. I can't say that 5 times fast. Where she is obtaining important life and job skills and leadership skills. So let's start with Ray, who will tell us about how American Youthworks and AmeriCorps helped him turn his life around and is now allowing him to help others do the same.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raimundo Santos. I grew up in East Austin, Texas. American Youth Works and AmeriCorps has changed the direction of my life, and I was able to transform my life through service to others. As a teen, I made poor decisions, and that resulted in the involvement in the court system. For 30 minutes of my life affected my entire life with poor decisions. I got one ticket with 3 infractions. It was speeding, driving without a license, and failure to maintain vehicle responsibility. Adding to all this, my girlfriend broke up with me at the time, and I fell into a depression. I fell behind in school, and I dropped out. And in my funk, I failed to pay the tickets, which resulted and turned into warrants for my arrest. I enrolled in alternative high school, but before long, I fell behind again. I dropped out. A counselor suggested that I take my GED test. I completed 2 out of the 5 tests and never finished the third, 4th, or 5th one. I needed money, so I started working at Pizza Hut. But I realized that that was a dead-end job. And on top of that, I didn't like smelling like pizza dough. My brother had gone to American Youth Works and graduated from it in the past and suggested that I finish my high school education there and also gain some job skills. I started with Youth Build Austin and had worked in construction with my dad over the summers, so my skills stood me out, or made me stand out. The staff gave me positive feedback that increased my confidence. I felt accomplished, and the American Youth Works teachers and trainers believed in me and saw something that not many other people did at the time. With their encouragement, I powered through my GED studies and got my GED within 2 months. I joined a full-time crew called Clean Energy Service Corp through the AmeriCorps network and the Corps network. Our crew was like a family. They encouraged me to further my education and to enroll in community college. We were remodeling homes in East Austin, where I grew up, and I was giving back to the community. We helped elderly people who couldn't leave their homes. We were making a difference for the people in my neighborhood, and that felt really good. I was doing something important with my life. I wanted to go to college, but first I had to clear up my warrants so I can get a license. When I went to the court and I told the judge that I was an AmeriCorps member, his eyes lit up like the skies of Texas. He knew I was doing something positive with my life. He dropped the late fees, the court costs, and I got to pay the original ticket amounts. By taking care of my responsibilities, I had a clean record. Driver's license, and college was again in my reach. I was even granted community service through the time that I was at American Youth Works as a National Service AmeriCorps member. I got my driver's license and I became a driver for one of the crews, making me more valuable to the crew. Weatherization work for low-income families taught me principles in helping those in need, as well as technical construction skills and energy efficiency construction. American Youth Works asked me to become a site foreman at that time, and I jumped on that opportunity immediately. I wanted to get back as a crew leader, just like the crew leaders gave me advice when I was an AmeriCorps member. I was a mentor for the court-involved crew members who were going through even darker times than I was. I encouraged them to stick with it and take advantage of the opportunities that AmeriCorps programs offered. And I got to drive them to Austin Community College for welding and automotive class that I took alongside with them. Eventually, I was asked to become a staff member for American Youth Works, and I said, yes, I want to pay it forward. I received $9,775 in AmeriCorps education awards and attended night classes at Austin Community College towards an associate's degree in construction management. To accomplish my goals in becoming a construction trainer at American Youth Works. Without the guidance and the respect from American Youth Works and the staff who believed in me, I would not have found my career and my true passion for helping others. I have the ability to make a difference for the people and community I care about, and my life story is a testimony on how important it is that AmeriCorps programs like American Youth Works are supported so that individuals like me can find purpose and support, and to help others that are court involved in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Ray, what an inspirational story. It's easy to see why you are a mentor and role model to other young people who are facing challenges re-entering society. And I'm really pleased to hear that you are returning to college. That is so important. A number of corps and many of you here in the room participated in piloting a program to develop a program around post-secondary education success to help out-of-school youth and first-generation students enroll in persistent college. And now we will hear from Kanisha, who participated in one of those programs and is now going to college as a result of her experience in Greater Miami Service Corps.
Hello, everybody. I am from Miami, Florida, and I attend the Greater Miami Service Corps. Who would have knew 3 to 4 years from now I'll be back here and now telling y'all my life story. I grew up in a bad neighborhood. So sorry. I grew up in a bad neighborhood. And well, if you was to even sit on the bus stop wrong, you're liable to get shot at. You walk down the street and you round the wrong group of people at the wrong time, you get killed. So I paused because there's so much hatred in the world. And I just had to think, like, oh my God, like I really live in a tough neighborhood. I did a lot of things that a lot of younger us really shouldn't have been doing at the age that I was doing it at because of my environment and because of where I was living. My father wasn't in my life at the time, so I just ran the streets, did a lot of things, got arrested, was in fist fights. So don't let this look fool you. I really came a long way. I wound up getting pregnant in 2012, and I didn't have my diploma, and I didn't have a job. So I was very lost. I did not know what to do. I was like, should I keep my baby? Should I not? And then I thought about it. I was like, there's a lot of people out here, especially women, that are trying to get pregnant, can't get pregnant because of, the predicaments that they probably have been in. And I'm like, who am I to kill a human being? Who am I to kill my baby? So eventually, once I heard the ultrasound, I was like, oh no, I have to keep my baby. There's no way in heck I'm going to kill my child. Whether the father want to be in his life or not, I'm his mommy. So I kept my baby, but then I was like, I have to get my high school diploma. Luckily, my cousin was living with us at the time, and he actually had a best friend that was working the front desk where I work at now. And he told me, go down there, they help you with your diploma, help you give you money for college, go down there and see how you like it, and start from there. So I went, and I was down there. I was like, oh, no, I need to work. I want to go outside. I want to, whatever y'all have, I want to do. And the man was looking at me, Mr. Parsons was looking at me like I was crazy, like, girl, you can't go outside, you're pregnant. I'm like, oh, I need money. He said, no, you need a diploma. And so we're going to put you in a program called NELA, which is online, and they help you get your diploma. So I got into it. It was fast. I was in it for like 3 months, and sure enough, I got my diploma a month before I had my baby. My baby was my motivation. He pushed me. I can honestly say if I would have never got pregnant, I don't know where I would have been. I said, I can't be this person no more. I have to change for the sake of my child. So they told me about starting New Hampshire University. I was like, I don't want to do it. It was like, no, do it. You're going to like it. I was like, I don't think I'm smart enough to be in college. I remember one of the assignments, they was like, I got so attached to it, they was like, explain what you love to do and how you love to do it. So I explained how to rap, and I did a video rapping. And from then, they was helping me. Ms. Kim was helping me with my assignments, and eventually I started doing assignments on my own. I was mastering them. But then I got into like personal problems, and I was slacking off, and then they dropped me from the program. But I just recently got back in around January time. I had to write a whole essay of why I should get back in, and now I'm doing better than ever. So the Greater Miami Service Corps really did save me. I'm glad I had the Mr. Andrews, the ones he was always in my ear, and he's old. No offense, he's an old man. So, so you know how they is. Like they'll tell you from the T, whether you want to hear it or not. And I'm glad I had Miss Dade. She was always telling me stuff on her experience of what she went through. And I'm glad I had Mr. Clarks, even though half the time I never understood what he was talking about because he always used these big old words. But then eventually he was like, you know what, you need to get a dictionary, you need to search this word, you need to, was always acknowledging me. Glad I had Miss Teresa, which was always sweet and nice to me. And Mr. Price and Mr. Assett for keeping me in the program. And also I found the love of my life there. He really is so awesome to me and is very much the greater half of me. I don't know what I would do without him and my son, and of course my family. So I want young girls to look at my story and to grow from my story and don't make the same stupid mistakes that I made, because now that I look back at it, yeah, I went through it, and some people might judge, some people might cry, some people might shake their head, but at the end of the day, it's my story. I didn't sit on my butt. I got up and I went to go get what I wanted to get, no matter what anybody ever had to say about me. A lot of people said I wasn't gonna be a good mama. Did it. A lot of people said I wouldn't amount to anything. I'm here speaking to y'all. My executive director was trying to get me to speak for so many years. I got into the program in 2013. I didn't start speaking until this year. So she's seen something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. And I thank her because she didn't only keep me, she saved me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanisha. You're definitely setting a great example for other young mothers and for your son. And you're also setting a great example for how CORES can provide pathways to and through post-secondary education. And our next speaker, Aisha Dorn, used her core experience at Baltimore Civic Works as a pathway to a career. In fact, it enabled her to start her own business. Aisha?
Can everybody hear me? Hi, my name is Aisha Dorn, founder, CEO of Lifeline Environmental from Baltimore City, Maryland. We specialize in asbestos abatement, lead abatement, mold, remediation, demolition, and all types of hazardous waste removal. I established Lifeline Environmental 1 year after completing my Civic Works certifications. It was because of these certifications I was able to start my business with no questions asked. My experience combined with my husband's experience gave us our LLC within a week. The certifications that I got as asbestos supervisor, lead abatement worker, lead abatement renovator, lead inspector, hazardous waste handler, first aid and CPR, OSHA construction safety, and confined space operations. The reason Civic Works was so attractive to me is because I was dying to get into the environmental field. I wasn't exactly sure how, but when I saw the posting for Civic Works and their free certifications, I said that's the way to go. Certifications cost over $1,000, and I didn't have it at the time. I also wanted to create jobs for Baltimore. And going through this program, I realized this is my way to give back to my city. Civic Works gave me hands-on experience, taught me about safety, and not only how to keep myself safe, but to keep workers around me safe. Because it only takes one mistake from anybody, whether it's the person supervising or the worker in the back of the tank working on his own. To do my part in Baltimore City, who has made national news in the past weeks for the civil unrest, the high unemployment, and dilapidated buildings and neighborhoods. My plan is to grow our Clean House initiative, where we plan to buy houses in Baltimore City, vacant buildings that have been sitting for years, falling apart on themselves, debris falling in the streets. And we plan to grow these neighborhoods back. These neighborhoods were filled at one time with laughter, schools, factories even. And what we plan to do is abate all the asbestos, lead, mold, and get them move-in ready and ready for further development. And we plan to do this using Civic Works workers. I've been invited back so many times to not only speak at graduations and tell them that they can do it themselves, start their own business, get into a field, and see where it can take you. I also get invited back to their job fairs, and I'm just filled with so much pride to be able to give a job to workers, to give a job to workers that came from the same place I did. I remember my first job after Civic Works. It was a hydrocarbon recovery company, basically oil recovery and recycling. It was there I met my partner and my husband, and we were able to talk every day about the safest way to do a job. And not only safely, but correctly, because asbestos, lead, and mold is something that you do not want to be around any longer than you have to. So it was there we instilled in the workers that we worked with, and also in ourselves, that we can not only do this work, but we can also complete these jobs ourselves. So after we left FCC, we started our own company. And through that, I was able to employ 4 workers. And I'm very fortunate for the role that Civic Works has played in my life. My first large-scale project was at the historic Clifton Mansion, Johns Hopkins Summer Home. It was there we were able to hire 4 workers. We did all the asbestos, lead, and demolition for that project. And we also were the general contractor for the project. So we oversaw plumbers, we oversaw electricians, and we oversaw all the trades that needed to happen alongside ours. We took great care to preserve the many historical details that made the mansion so special. There was the Civic Works 10th anniversary, where I was allowed to open for Kathleen Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And it's through that talk we were inspired to not only take our business past oil recovery, but also create sustainable energy grids which cities can run on. I hope that you can hear our stories and know that there is change being made. Help me help Baltimore City. Help Civic Works help workers. Help Civic Works start businesses. Help create change. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, for your story and your continued support of Baltimore. I think it's wonderful that you not only add value to the community and make it healthier, but you're employing former Corps members like yourself. Next, and our final speaker is Catherine Martinez. She is also using her Corps experience at the Curlew Job Center to provide for a career in a non-traditional career in welding. She's also using her Corps experience to develop impressive leadership skills she did not even know she had.
Hello, my name's Catherine. So I have been self-conscious and quiet most of my life, and I went through high school and college sitting timidly in the corner. I thought that going to college to become an engineer would make me feel impressive and, in turn, give me that inner strength that I was looking for. After 3 semesters of feeling empty, I realized that I would never develop that strength until I pursued my true passion of welding. Yes, I said welding. It was while I was enrolling at Portland Community College, an institute that offered welding, that I noticed a flyer for Job Corps, a trade school that offered to teach me for free, with free room and board. Seemed like a perfect opportunity that I couldn't pass up. I signed up immediately, knowing that this was going to be the greatest alternative to having to pay thousands of dollars at a college. Although I now realize that Job Corps is so much more than learning how to weld at no cost to me. Welding has been great, and so has the staff at Curlew Job Corps. I have learned so much, not just about welding, but in life too. Staff members expect everyone to get involved in leadership in dorm, even if just to trial it for a few days. After I had been asked several times to trial, I finally gave in and landed a small leadership position. I left the position after a month because I realized I was impatient enough for it. I wasn't successful in the position, but I wouldn't say that I failed entirely. because at least I now knew what it took and I learned from my mistakes. This small position allowed me, for the first time in my life, to be a leader. After years of being overlooked as a leader or someone with the possible potential to become one, because I was the quiet and shy girl, I was finally given an opportunity. I found my inner strength, all due to the staff and teaching at Job Corps. Curlew Job Corps stresses the importance of good leadership. Anyone can be thrown into a higher position and call themselves a leader. But it takes a good work ethic, understanding, patience, and the ability to not only give constructive criticism, but to receive it as well. The staff tries to teach us these qualities and to guide us, but it is ultimately up to the student whether or not they want to put in the work to develop the qualities that are needed. After learning them myself from my position in dorm, I became the foreman for welding and for one of Curlew Job Corps' camp crews that went out on a fire last year. My crew worked at the Carlton Complex for 2 weeks. It was one of the largest fires that the West Coast has ever seen. After receiving these positions, I realized that I still had a lot to learn. I had the qualities to be a good leader, but I still needed to fully develop them. With the guidance and patience of my trade boss and camp crew boss, over time I was made into a respected leader. It takes great responsibility to be a leader. I always try to lead by example, and my fellow trade and camp crew members see this and they try to follow suit, allowing them to develop their own leadership skills. Becoming a leader also means that I now have the duty to try to help others advance in their own work. I now make a willing effort to help all of my fellow welders instead of just focusing on my own gain. Some welcome my help more than others, but that's all right, because at least I know that I have done my duty as a foreman, and that these people will become better welders and, in turn, have a better chance of making a career out of it. After Job Corps, I plan on making a career out of welding. I don't think that I would be as confident and patient as I am now if I have never been a leader. As for the staff members at Curlew Job Corps who pushed me into it, I thank them. Without them and Job Corps, I would not be ready to step out into the working world, ready to climb my way up the leadership ladder. Unfortunately, not everyone has what it takes to be a good leader. I do think, though, that everyone deserves a chance to figure that out on their own. To put it bluntly, I would have probably failed in the working world if it was not for Job Corps who showed me my potential. So I ask policymakers in Washington, D.C. to support me and others like me by supporting leadership development opportunities at Corps like Curlew Job Corps. Without this center, I would not be the person who is standing before you, and the fact that I had the opportunity to get selected to come to D.C. to talk to all of you today is a testament to Job Corps' effectiveness and the importance that it has on young lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We look forward to seeing where your career pathway and your leadership skills will take you. Perhaps one day you'll be back here at the White House in a different capacity. All right. So that wraps up this panel. Please thank me in joining the panelists, the Corps directors, staff, and members who traveled from all over the country to be here, and our friends at the administration for their longtime support and for making this opportunity possible.
So we are very grateful to all of you for speaking and thankful that you had the chance to share some of those amazing experiences, and it's a credit to the Corps Network and to the work that you all have done, I think, and really speaks to some of the issues that Roy spoke about at the beginning. So thank you. One more round of applause for our panelists. You were truly fantastic. So it's now my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Michael Smith, who's a special assistant to the president, a very special assistant to the president, and runs our My Brother's Keeper initiative here out of the White House. And he's going to speak about some of the issues he works on out of here and how you all can get involved in helping. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing? Good. Good to see everybody. Good to see so many familiar faces. I will give a very brief update on My Brother's Keeper, and then I'm going to break protocol and take questions and comments from you because I know many of you are helping to lead this work in many places around the country, and I want to hear, one, what questions you might have for me, but two, what you need from us in order to do this work. I'll give an update, but you know, when the president launched My Brother's Keeper in 2014, I do think we were able to help coordinate a movement. I think we were able to energize a movement, but we know that folks like you and your communities have been working on these issues for a long time, and so you have the expertise, and I want to hear from you. I also just want to say what an honor it is to be here with all of you and to spend some time with folks like you who are dedicating their lives to changing your communities in the world. I grew up in Western Massachusetts and in Springfield, Massachusetts. Any Springfield folks? Anyone know Springfield? Hi, the birthplace of basketball and Dr. Seuss. And you know, Springfield sounds like this idyllic New England city. And in many ways it is. You've got the rolling Berkshires and all of that, but most recently it was rated the second most violent city in all of the Northeast. In the past 10 years there have been almost 200 murders. Most of those kids look like me, boys and young men of color. You know, one of those cities where it's last in everything good and first in everything bad. And I grew up, my parents were 16 years old. Both of them were 16 years old when I was born. And every statistic would show for the neighborhood that I grew up in and the circumstances that I grew up in that I probably shouldn't be here as a special assistant. I love that, by the way. Thank you. To the president, talking to all of you, but I am, and I am because of a whole lot of grace, certainly, to an amazing single mom, but also because of folks like you who got in the way, who sacrificed your own time, who didn't wallow in self-pity, but said, I want to make a difference not only for myself, but for my community. And I stand on the shoulders of folks like that. And I just want to say thank you to those of you that are staff, to those of you that are core members, and those of you that are doing the most important work and making a difference and making this country a better place. So I'll give you just a very quick update on My Brother's Keeper. We're about 15 months old, so we're a toddler. I guess we're just starting to walk. And the idea behind My Brother's Keeper was simple. It was, how do you address these persistent opportunity gaps that boys and young men of color are facing in this country and make sure that all young people can achieve their full potential? And when you look at what's happening with boys and young men of color in this country, it's really startling. As early as reading at grade level, by third grade, you know, that really important moment where you switch from reading to learn, or excuse me, learning to read to reading to learn, we've got 80% of black boys and Latino boys that aren't reading at grade level by third grade. And we know you can almost predict high school dropout right there. When you look at the high school graduation rate, we can applaud that we've made it this year to an 80% graduation rate, and we're even seeing upticks in African American and Latino populations. But you still have many black and Latino and tribal boys where the graduation rate is around 50%. We actually had a group in from Rochester not too long ago. 3 years ago, they were graduating 9% of their black boys in Rochester. Unacceptable for the greatest country on the face of the planet. You look at unemployment rate, where you have double-digit unemployment numbers, and you haven't really seen much movement in a big way since the civil rights movement. And you look at interaction with the criminal justice system, and that's really shocking. We just saw recent numbers that show almost half of black men will have been arrested once by the time they're 24 years old. And while 6% of the nation's population, black boys represent over half of the nation's homicide victims. And so when you look at that challenge, you realize we've got to roll up our sleeves and we've got to get active, because America depends on these young people. You guys know these stats, right? There are 6 million kids in this country that are considered disconnected. Most of them happen to be boys and young men of color. They're not in school, they're not in work. And for a society that is based on production and consumption, this is not just a moral thing. This is an economic imperative. We need more people making Teslas and iPhones. We need more people that are consuming with $30, $40, $50 an hour jobs and not $9, $10, $11 an hour jobs. And so if you hear the president talk about it, he'll say it's because it's a moral obligation that America remains a place where you can make it if you try. If you work hard and play by the rules, we have a responsibility to help you succeed. But it's also an economic imperative if we're going to stay the most globally competitive nation, globally competitive city. And so that's what My Brother's Keeper is all about. Our work is divided into three different areas. One, policy; two, place; three, private sector. On the policy side, the president created the My Brother's Keeper Task Force by presidential memorandum. So almost every single member of the cabinet that has anything to do with domestic policy, Secretary of Education, Attorney General, they all are responsible for giving recommendations to the president on what we can do to make a difference on these issues. The CEO of the Corporation for National Community Services on that task force as well. And they gave those recommendations, and you're seeing all sorts of things like what you're working on, like Youth Opportunity AmeriCorps is in many ways a result of My Brother's Keeper. The American Apprenticeship Initiative that came out of Department of Labor, $100 million American Apprenticeship Initiative, talks about this population and how we need to re-engage in the workforce. You look at new guidance that's coming out of the DOJ and Department of Education on correctional education, school discipline reform, really pushing. You guys know about the school discipline issue. We've got kids in K through second grade that are being kicked out of school, many times involving law enforcement officials. For, I don't know, when I was going to school, I might have gotten a timeout or a threat that someone would call my mother, and that's all it would take. But you've got kids that are being taken out of school, and we're trying to do something about that. So the policy work is going really well. I encourage you to look at whitehouse.gov/MBK to learn more about it. My favorite part of this work is our community work. The My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge was launched in October of last year by the president, and we now have 233 mayors, tribal leaders, and county executives that have said, we are taking your challenge, Mr. President, and we're going to close these opportunity gaps in our own communities. 233 communities, 20 tribal nations, 47 states, Puerto Rico, and DC. Philadelphia was actually the first to release their plan on what they're going to do, and one of the big goals they have is to reduce juvenile arrests by 50%, and they have a plan to get that done. Boston is expanding their mentoring initiative in a major way. Indianapolis is doing a replica of the Harlem Children's Zone. So really amazing work that's happening all over the community, all over the country. I know you guys are involved in a lot of it. And lastly is private sector action. The president said this has to be an all-hands-on-deck moment. And the private sector is stepping up in a major way. There's been almost $500 million in private sector commitments since My Brother's Keeper launch. Most recently, there was $100 million-ish commitment for the creation of something called the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, which is being led by Joe Echevarria, a Hispanic brother who grew up in the Bronx, who went on to become the CEO of Deloitte, and has now decided to focus the rest of his life on building opportunities for young people who may not normally have them. And they're giving real money, real expertise, real talent to communities that have plans to address these opportunity gaps. So there's lots of great work that's taking place. I thank you for your work. And with that, I'll be quiet. Well, actually, one other thing I'll say is, you know, the first year has really been about building the infrastructure around this work. And the next year, the president is really pushing us to impact. The president wants us to be able to measure change and how people's lives are improved as a result of this work. And so we look forward to locking arms with all of you and many others to do that. So I'll be quiet and happy to take any questions or comments that you might have. Yes, sir.
My name's Mark Smith. I'm from American Youth Works in Austin, Texas. And I saw you speak recently at the Aspen Institute's event on Opportunity Youth Incentive Fund. And what was really clear at that conference was one of the big things that the My Brother's Keeper initiative is doing is putting this equity lens on boys and men of color and how disparately out of opportunity they are at the moment. And so I'm so glad you've come to the Core Networks event, and you're kind of drawing this correlation between this incredible work that happens in the field, giving young people the opportunity to succeed out on projects that make a difference in their own communities to kind of grow that pride. And so I just want to sort of encourage you and appreciate you for what you're doing, but encourage you also to really keep working with those mayors and county officials at the state level as well, driving these initiatives all the way down to that level so that they intentionally sort of use this equity lens to think about employing young people in these initiatives. in every way that they can, the way you've been doing it with the Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, Department of Ag has been really strong behind this. So if we can get that coming up from the bottom as well, and you guys are helping highlight that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. We will. Yeah. So we obviously don't control the work that's happening in communities, but in the case of Philadelphia and about 50 other communities, they have put plans out saying exactly what they're going to do. And so I encourage folks that are in communities to hold them accountable. What is the AmeriCorps program in Philadelphia? Power Corps. You're with Power Corps. And so I think of course, I knew that. I think Power Corps was one of the announcement events that happened a few months back with the mayor. But I encourage you guys are going to have to hold people accountable. Mayors come and go. They're wonderful. They're extraordinary. We need buy-in. But if this work is going to last and be meaningful, folks like you are going to have to hold them accountable. Say, you said you were going to do this, or where's Youth Voice? You had that one roundtable with young people, but how are we making sure we're staying involved? And so I would say, be the change you want to see. Don't wait for them to act. Go ahead and act. It's the great thing about My Brother's Keeper is it's a mantle that anyone can pick up on, and you don't have to wait for anyone else. But look at their plan, hold them accountable.